I've been vaxxed today, so suddenly, yeah, it's been a funny day. Tal Assad, is that the right pronunciation?
Tal, yeah.
Tal, yeah, cool. All right, so I know you've been in the industry for a while. We were on Clubhouse the other day. Rana, he's always on me about getting on the Fridays that they do there. Really good session, various different subjects. There was Amazon dropped on the Thursday this whole thing about inventory, and you was chatting on there, so I thought it'd be great to get you on the show. I think this is your first time on the show, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And do you want to give the audience a bit of background on yourself before we get into things?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Talal. I run a small little agency called Brand Together, and the purpose of Brand Together is to work with other brands who are selling not just on Amazon but on their own website or in retail, and help all the founders to work with one another to be able to solve their own issues. And then we advise them mainly on Amazon, but all e-commerce. And I've been doing this now for about 5 years. Has it been 6 years? Since 2016. 5 years, a little over 5 years right now, both in the capacity as like working for a brand and now as a consultant.
Yeah, and didn't you, prior to all this, you was doing DSP, not Amazon DSP, right? You were doing, do you want to go into a bit about that as well?
Yeah, I was running digital marketing for a really large DSP that exited on the New York Stock Exchange and has since been acquired by another larger DSP. And we were running banner ads, video ads, basically every single advertising type you've ever seen for all of the major companies, including all those annoying poll ones, like everything. And so, yeah, that was my background, was digital marketing before that.
Cool. All right. I'm just going to quickly read out this. Everyone knows about this kind of thing, but just a bit of context for the show, and then we can break into it. More FBA shipment flexibility with restock limits by storage type. This was dropped Thursday of last week, and obviously the Amazon community is up in arms over it, and of course they will be. In July 2020, we announced ASIN level quantity limits for products that were stored in our fulfillment network. We'll make this change to ensure that we can receive the stored products for all sellers who use fulfillment by Amazon. We've heard your feedback, and we're continuously improving our policies, what a load of bollocks, and programs to better receive and store your products. Effective April 22nd, 2021, FBA products will no longer be subject to ASIN level quantity limits. Instead, restock limits will be set by the storage type level, offering you much more flexibility in managing shipments. They didn't listen to the community, and that is absolute utter bollocks, because it's no good. It's about as useful as a chocolate ashtray. So let's break this down into categories: new sellers, mid, large sellers with large SKUs. So to kick things off, what is the impact here?
Yeah, so I mean that's exactly what you said. Can you guys can hear me all right? I changed mics.
Yeah. That's no worries. Yeah.
So the funniest thing that they said is like, we've heard your complaints. We're going to give you more flexibility. Yeah. And then what they end up doing is, yeah, theoretically they gave you more flexibility because now you can allocate the storage however you want. Yeah. But then they put that bar so low. They didn't say exactly what that flexibility was, right? They just said, we're going to give you flexibility. If you're a brand new seller or a seller with not much sales history yet, your bar was 1,000 standard size units, 1,000 oversized units, and 1,000 apparel and footwear. And so let's say you're sitting there and you had that 200 ASIN limit that we were all used to for the last year. You put your order in, you already had freight on the way. Like, that gives you theoretically 5 units that you can launch if you were trying to do, or 5 ASINs you can launch if you were going to do them at their max. So that's who gets affected the most by far, are the small brand new sellers, or some of the larger sellers who are maybe already at capacity and then ready to launch something else because they have their 200 units. So I guess a lot of the groups that I'm working with, no one was going to be affected. We were just really, really lucky that no one had it.
I mean, you mentioned this on Clubhouse. I want to shout out to Rana for the Clubhouse session where obviously wanted to chat about this, but with the layout of the shows, those guys were on. I think Brandon, Kevin King were all on as well. Some really good information here, but I wanted to make sure it come out to my audience as well, but because of the timeline. So explain, I mean, some of the, like you said, it's not affected your clients, but why?
They based it from what we can tell. So I took down all of the information as I could, trying to do as much of like linear compatible, like trying to see what the correlation was between sales and everything. And it looks like the closest amount or the closest thing that it was tied to was your sales history, your 90-day unit sales history. So not even the capacity, not even the cubic footage, but 90-day unit sales history had the closest correlation to what this number was going to be. And as long as you had units and weren't at full capacity and were kind of used to this restock limit, you have enough capacity to send stuff in. I think we were just really fortunate, frankly. I think that there's going to be a lot of sellers out there that could consider themselves bigger sellers who are, who were right in the midst of a launch. But I think this comes back to what Rana sent into that chat as well. And I think we should read that letter, where it's basically where Amazon says, if you have anything on its way, your shipments will be unilaterally canceled by Amazon. Contact your carrier to return your shipments, which anyone on this knows that that's not a possibility.
Yeah. So what can we do? So with that in mind, with people got stuff already sitting on the ocean, what kind of impact do you see in there? Because we've seen the situation, 3PLs are overrun, right? Because everyone's run out to get 3PL because of the limitations previously. So what impact would this have now, and how are we going to stagger this? What's your opinion on it?
That's a really good, and it's a tough question. So first off, like people on the different forums or on the different Facebook groups, some people are saying they didn't cancel. They're like, whatever, I'm going to just let it go. My thing wasn't canceled, so I'm just going to allow it to hit. And then they reported that, oh, hey, Amazon accepted my shipment, even though it was over. And then some people said Amazon canceled my order. Yeah. So this is where it becomes like a logistical nightmare, especially for someone who doesn't have, like, newer sellers who probably don't have the experience of like who to call, how to talk to, how to find a 3PL last minute. I'd be very curious to ask how someone who's like very, very versed in logistics, what you would do if your stuff was on the water, because like you can't even talk to that freight company right now. Like they're just trying to get their stuff to port at point. And so, you kind of, so this, I want to preface by saying this. I don't know if this is like the best advice, but like, you almost have to roll the dice and be like, Amazon has to accept this or deal with it later. Now, that could be terrible, terrible advice. And I would love to actually hear more from maybe some people in the comments have some better.
Well, I think Sharon's just commented here. I'm not sure if it's it is showing the whole message. One of my brand sales increased dramatically in the summer, and the last 90 days is not an indication of how the sales will be for next month. So definitely, it's a load of bollocks. Nice one. We will just adjust to using our own fulfillment as backup and build an amazing relationship with the 3PLs. But this comes down to another problem as well with the 3PLs. A lot of the good ones are going to want to work with a certain tier. They want to do volumes because of their margins, right? And so you often hear, it's quite common now, there's new 3PLs set up, so you don't know how good they're going to be because they don't have a track record. And the ones that do tend to take off, I think, I've never run a 3PL, but I know from my understanding, the margins are not amazing on that. It takes some scale, and the less customers that you're going to deal with, the better who's doing more volume. But then with these caps and stuff, and what happens currently with overstocks and stuff like that, how do you think people should handle that?
That gives me just anxiety thinking about it. Like that's just a nightmare. So your best bet, I think, is to look for the different groups that are out there who already are dealing with a bunch of the different 3PLs, and just hoping that there are people who are going to tell you, hey, I'm working with so-and-so that's in San Francisco right now. I was just talking to their warehouse manager, and they say, they have capacity for a couple more. That's, of course, in any sort of service-based industry, you always want to ask other people's advice on how things work, and no two people's experiences are going to be the same. So like my favorite airline is never your favorite airline, right? And I think that's the very same thing with 3PLs. Like I have two distinct groups in the exact same 3PL, and one loves their experience and one absolutely hates their experience with them and can't wait to pull out.
Again, it comes down to relationships, volume, and everything else as well, isn't it?
Exactly. And so like I know this probably sounds a little callous, but if you're not in the area I don't think you're going to be, I don't think you're in luck. I think a lot of people are going to either go out of business or are going to have to spend a lot more than they originally planned on spending in order to get their product somewhere. So I really recommend everyone join every single group, make relationships with all the people who are frequent posters, try to figure out, I know that there's the Empowery co-op probably would have us 3PL.
What I'm saying is there's plenty of them out there, but you often see is that they spring up. I mean, we've got some really good 3PLs in the UK. The one I use is effectively, I won't go into too many details, but the rate's really low because they're not been set up as an FBA 3PL. They're old school, right? They've been around for years. They just so happen there's a small proportion of their business is Amazon. But then you'd look at another, like an FBA that's set up by a former seller, like a current or former seller. They'll set it up and it becomes an FBA 3PL. Exactly. Suddenly the fees are like 3 times higher. And then you've got the storage. It's just, pick and packing and whatever you're doing in terms of maneuvering around or anything where you're doing assembly or stuff like that. Its sophistication level, it starts to become problematic because if you're a seller that is trying to, let's say you're shipping from China, but then you're assembling some elements together, maybe bring outside of China, you bring them together at the 3PL. Again, that's going to take up, the point I'm trying to get across is if you're trying to differentiate, this is a time where you can get punished as well because there's so many moving parts. Totally. And if you're at a 3PL that you're doing really well at, but then there's a big flood of people coming in, your service level goes down as well. So it's like this seesaw effect.
And that's exactly what's going to end up happening. For a lot of people, I think the good news, and I don't want to say good news, but the silver lining here is that 200 ASIN limit already, I think, prepped a lot of this discussion since. Very, very few sellers are doing MOQs of just 200. Like usually you're going to be getting, thousands of units and already have that 3PL. The only issue is now you trying to divert whatever shipment that was going to FBA back into these 3PLs. But yeah, interviewing them, asking them about their FBA ability, right? Whether they know how to prep and send into FBA, whether they can do fulfilled by merchant is another huge issue that you find tons of 3PLs can't do. They just don't do DTC. They're so used to like consolidating and shipping out on pallets. And then as soon as you say, can you directly ship to consumer? They're like, no, we don't do that. Or they'll say, yeah, we can do that. And then you look at the rates and you're like, no, that makes no sense. I'm not paying $7 a pick pack fee for a $12 product. So I do have a little questionnaire that I send out for my clients to send out to 3PLs. I'm more than happy to post an anonymous version of that, and you guys can take that and do whatever you want. It's just a Google form that allows you to at least get a bunch of, if you want to RFP tons of 3PLs at the same time. The other problem is like none of them really speak in an apples to apples comparison. So some people will charge you based on cubic footage. Some people will charge you based on units. Some people will charge you based on like how many hours it takes them to do things. And then you're like, how many hours does it take you to break down a pallet? And some people will say, oh, that's an hour job. Some people will say it's a 3-hour job. So you have to be really, really, I think just very direct, and you have to ask all the different scenarios to try to find out a price. And if you're working with a lot of 3PLs that are Amazon based, like luckily those numbers are pretty standardized. But if you're looking for like an omni-channel 3PL and also a consolidator, like it gets very complicated very quickly.
Indeed.
And that's where the relationship is huge.
Cybe's got a question. Is there something bigger going on here? AM's cleaning out all the crappy, slow moving products, expanding space for their own products. I don't know, but there's got to be a reason.
I don't think they're clearing. I personally don't think like this is a conspiracy for Amazon, like clearing space for their units. I think that there has been warehouse capacity issues that have just been rolling and going on for a long, long time. And this is just a reaction to that last one, which was the 200 ASIN limit. If it was all just based on really bad, slow moving product, they would have kept it at an ASIN limit standpoint. So I think their big thing here is they're trying to find a happy medium, and the left hand didn't talk to the right hand, and then they didn't ask sellers at the end of the day, was this going to really affect you? And I think that's, theoretically, this is progress in Amazon's eyes, but this is actually just like a failure. I think this is a failure more than anything.
Facebook user says develop relationships with Amazon wholesalers who have access limited capacity backup plan. Afternoon, Danny. Long time no speak. No one messes with Tao. I don't mess with Tao either. He also says, listen to this. Canada's just reduced ASIN limits to 50. Yeah, I'm not sure who that is, but drop your name in the chat and we can, if you've got any more questions. So where do you see this going future-wise?
I think this is the new thing to stay here. My assumption is that there's going to be another big backlash that they're listening to right now, but everything that's structurally is going to be pretty slow moving on Amazon. Yeah. Until they can build more warehouses and staff those warehouses, like we keep, and I'm not an Amazon defender here, so I just want to preface this, but Amazon bashing is easy when you're a seller and it hurts you, and I partake in it on a daily basis. But then, like, trying to reason and think about, okay, what position are they in for them to make these situations? And so, like, where is this going to go? There are very, very, very limited number of warehouses that you can put up that do what Amazon does overnight. You have COVID that ravaged the country for a while and globally. And so that's going to shut down warehouses here and there. I think now we're maybe emerging from that part of it. So that's the good sign.
Yeah.
But the like, and then we also complain a lot about seller support. And it's like, when you're adding millions of new sellers who call in and asking, how do I do this, when they could have just Googled it, like, you're taking seller support resources as well. So, like, combine all three of those things, because seller support is also a part of, like, this infrastructure team. It's just so hard to think, where is Amazon going to go unless they're really, really going to invest in FBA. And then the question becomes whether this is the new strategy is to invest in FBA, or whether they're going to be, like, really trying to invest in being a first party logistics company again, like they were talking about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Kathleen says, considering you said finding the 3PL would be especially difficult for newbies, would it be wise to use a freight forwarder that has its own 3PL? Yeah, I mean, there's some freight forwarders. The one that we used to use I don't use them now. Used to use in the UK. They used to have storage space as well. Another trick, because if you're manufacturing in the UK, another option, your manufacturer might be able to put it on the shelf because they've got warehouse space, and then you can send for collection direct to Amazon based on the amount of units you sent in. So there's another option there, is to have a chat with your factory. Of course, you can't do this with your Chinese factory if you're selling on the US platform, but there's an opportunity there. What else we've got here? Anna says, another sign that we need to go FBM. True. Yeah,
everyone should have an FBM backup plan.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, it's frustrating, really, because it's like, you want to use FBA. Like, when I got into this in 2015, it was like, great, Amazon FBA. You didn't have these kind of problems back then, right? Because it solved all your solutions. But
yeah,
we're being pushed further and further away from the original solution that they provided.
No, 100%. And I think, again, it comes down to just, like, the demand, both from a seller's perspective and from a capacity standpoint, has made FBA just rife for disruption again. It's funny. It's like Amazon is ready to being disrupted by whoever can figure this out.
Yeah. Amazon. Sharon says the freight forwarders that have their own 3PL also don't have space, in my experience working with Unicargo. Yeah, this is true. And when we're talking about space, this is like favors, you know. I've kept stock at places where, like, the freight forward here in the UK, but they're not saying, hello, come here, we're a 3PL. It's just so happened that they have warehouse space because of the location that they're in, but that won't be a solution for everyone. The only other thing is loads of Amazon sellers chip in, but, you know, it just gets messy. I mean, who wants to run around in a warehouse with boxes? I know that they're jobs for people to do and they enjoy it. But I mean, there are people that have done it, but it's just, it's just not something that's really sexy. Would you want to run a 3PL?
Never, ever, ever. No. Yeah. I mean, it's, imagine the turnover of that job as well. So, like, finally you train people who are going to be fast enough. The margins are so thin. it would be really difficult to compensate people who are doing like, tedious, sometimes really, I would say like dangerous and backbreaking work, and then they leave as soon. You'll consistently be looking for people. I mean, the place that I was working at before here, when I was working for that energy drink company, we actually owned our own factory and warehouse, and keeping that staffed with good people was really difficult to do. That was 4 years ago when it wasn't even that big of a deal.
Yeah. Tim says another fun one for you. Our top selling product is now a meltable category with no FBA fulfillment, April 15th to October 15th. Yep. Yippee. Pretty much have only done seller fulfilled Prime all year. I think that's going to be a big push for a lot of people as well, isn't it, to go in that direction?
Yeah, I have a little bit to expand on that one, Tim. You're going to be really annoyed. I don't know if you have any, Tim will be a little annoyed, but if you have any units there that you did not remove, which we experimented on some of our meltable ones that were on the meltable list, did not remove them, they are still available till today. And so even though they panicked everyone and they said, if you don't put your removal order by April 14th, we're going to dispose all of your stuff. What are we now? This is the last day of April, almost. And
Friday's last day, isn't it? Yeah.
They're still there. So maybe April 30th, which was what last year's date was. They also raised the temperature by like 20 degrees as well. It used to be 125 or 135, and now it's 155. And so Amazon's just making it harder and harder. They have the ability to like push out rules without, I don't think, getting enough people up the chain to be like, hey, is this happening? Hey, is this happening? And so that meltable thing is a killer for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Have we kind of covered everything? I mean, I know we're 22 minutes in. I like to get the content done. We can talk about other stuff, but I think we covered most areas. We kind of aired out Amazon, haven't we, in terms of this inventory thing? But so what if we were to count back on some solutions? What were some of the solutions you'll provide for these different levels? Smaller seller, intermediate, and the larger guys.
Yeah, so back when it was the ASIN restock limit issues, one thing that I found is velocities count. And if for some reason you have stuff already at Amazon and you're at capacity and you haven't done the Vine program yet, I highly suggest doing the Vine program because that's automatically like almost 30 units gone. And so that really increases your velocity. So as long as the Vine program isn't backed up and it takes forever, usually that counts to your velocity numbers. I would almost do things like find ways to get through some search, find, buy, try to double up on all your issues now, just so you can grab that velocity. So like things like search, find, buy or different launch campaigns, just to increase that, because at this point you need that number to increase. I would almost not advise. I don't know. I don't want to put this on video. But
no, go on, go for it. It doesn't matter. It's an open space. Look, it may not be exactly right, but it's an opinion. You share your opinion, and people will need to, as adult human beings, they work that shit out for themselves. Yeah.
So here might be a very unpopular opinion. I want to preface this. But I wouldn't try to divert work like stuff that's on its way to Amazon. I would just see like if it hits Amazon, what's going to happen, because I don't know if that's, first of all, if it's even a possibility. If you've ever tried to talk through these shipping companies, for the most part, your stuff is already on either on the water or it's on a trailer parked outside of Amazon. There's no way to reclaim it. Just whatever you can do to move that, to get it in there and to fight with Amazon and just plead with them until they understand the situation. It might require a lot more time on the phone. Your stuff might get rejected and disposed of, which is like the worst case scenario. I haven't heard of that happening yet though. So I don't know. It's very tough.
Maybe they're putting that into place as well, because some people might go, well, I didn't see the email. So by making a strong recommendation of destroying the stock, it then puts off a lot of people. Because look, everyone's looking for an edge, right? People are doing add to carts and all sorts. They're going to be people out there going, fuck it, I want that to go into Amazon, I'll play dumb, and they may take that risk, but then Amazon has to set a boundary there for that, so sure. It's a high risk route of what to do. What's coming up for you, mate? What are you doing this year?
Yeah, just we had a really fun couple of weeks. One of the clients of mine, one of their products debuted on Shark Tank on Friday, and so we went from 0 Amazon account to a fully functioning Amazon account with listings and brand registry in 16 days, which I think might be the record I've ever had of getting everything up and out there.
Yeah.
But this goes back to like everything had to be a green light, right? You couldn't stop. And we got really lucky. The verification process happened instantaneously. Brand registry happened instantaneously. The company was already pretty established at the time, so that I think Amazon looks into that when they do verifications. Now the funny thing in all of this though is this kind of ties up this whole conversation back together. The weakest part in this whole conversation was the 3PL, which wasn't able to map the Amazon SKUs in time. They need 2 days of programming. So that's another thing to remember. Like some of these are using a very antiquated, it's called an OMS, order management system, that doesn't talk well with their inventory IMS, their inventory management system. And that ends up giving you like you have to make sure that you talk to every single stakeholder along the way, or else you'll end up like Amazon. You'll do something without asking everyone else if they're going to be okay with it. So that's a really big lesson that we learned. And this was a major 3PL too. So that just gives you an idea that even the bigger ones don't have good capacity. Yeah.
Cool. What's the best way that people can reach you?
Sure. You can hit me up straight on Facebook. I'm Tal Assad on Facebook. I answer my Facebook messages. My website is brandtogether.io. I don't answer those messages as much because they always filter to spam, but that's a me issue, not a you issue. So Facebook's definitely the best way.
Cool. Thank you, mate. We'll get you back soon. Tomorrow, Sharon will be in the chair. I think she's bringing in someone, a TikTok influencer for Amazon sellers. I'll be back here next week as usual. Bella on a Monday, me Tuesday, Wednesday, and of course, Sharon Evan on a Thursday. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love, and I'll see you soon.